Hi folks, and welcome back to Old School Studios. This is part 2 of the 80cc with the Jackshaft kit. So, I am going to work off of 2 pictures. This is the one picture I found online that is my exact kit. And this is the second picture that I have to work off of. So, I'm not going at this blind, but I'm not going at this with instructions. Right off the rip, I already see a problem. I started putting the one sprocket on first, and it is tight. I wasn't beating on it, but I was giving it little love taps with this tiny little hammer. You can see how small it is. And I was holding it, and I was just tat 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 tat. So I figured I had to start on one side, and I was going to start on this side of the motor, and this would be coming this way, and the shaft would have to come out far enough to stick out through the end of this. So the sprocket needs to be on there probably this full distance. So it is tight. I'm almost considering tapping it back off and filing out the inside of that a little bit so it has more of a slip. I mean, it's tight. And I actually had to take this punch and come back at the key this direction and and get the key, and now I could take them all down together at the same time. So what I was thinking of was setting this on the vise and getting a socket that fits around here and tapping the back of the socket. I don't know exactly how far I need to go, but it needs to go far enough where that shaft is sticking out and goes into that bearing, and then I want to be in line with this sprocket, so it's sprocket to sprocket. So that's where I'm at. We're working on it. Well, with having brought this thing down the shaft a ways, it actually loosened up a little bit as it got down, but I filed the end of the shaft like I chamfered the edge just a tick, and like ran my file 2 times around, just moving it. I was able to lay this down on my bench vise and gingerly tapped it right into the bearing. Now I might have to, I don't think I nicked this up at all right here, but I'm going to chamfer that and give this end a cleaning up. So I would think that the next piece that has to go on is this sprocket going in this direction, and this piece on the end. And I will confirm that again here with the picture and try to film tamping that on next. I believe it goes this way. It has this little key that needs to get tamped into that groove, and they need to coincide with this groove. Alright, so I filed the other end of that, and I got it started in there, and then I slid the key in, and with my punch I was able to align everything up and tap my key in. So now I could take the whole thing this way and put my socket on there and tamp it down into tap it down into the slot so I could get this plate on, and that's what we're working on now. Alright, so where I'm at right now, this is actually going this way. If the motor is like this, and now I will find the correct way that this piece has to go. I'm pretty sure it's like this, and we will get that put in there, and we'll be back at you. Here I pulled the sprocket cover off and put the small chain around that sprocket, and now I could line up the bolts and figure out which side is which, because I'm not sure if the big sprocket goes on this side or the little sprocket. They're both the same link chain, so I know the short one would go on this side, but I don't know if it's this sprocket or this sprocket, so I am going to establish that now. After reviewing the picture, here you could see the sprocket is hanging out past the bracket, so it is the big sprocket goes on the left side of the bike. So that's the way we are going to set this up. And another thing I noticed is this whole thing is, the shaft is on the back side of the seat post, so you can't bolt it to the motor until you're ready to install it on the bike. Interesting. Very interesting. After figuring and calculating and figuring and taking things off and putting things back on, this is what I have established, that this sprocket, and I'm not even sure if this needs to be turned around or not until it's on in line with this, and you can't bolt this on because the seat pole comes up through here and sandwiches another bracket. So the other plate goes on the outside here and protects your right leg from this sprocket turning in a chain. Right here it has this little jog down and covers that whole sprocket, so I have to find the right bolts that go all the way through, like that bolt and that bolt. But so far, it hasn't been ridiculous as far as figuring this out. I got the two pictures. It was just a matter of figuring out which sprocket was which. And then I actually had this sprocket on. I thought this one on the outside, but then it didn't line up correctly. So, had to get that off. Had a couple little flaring tools that worked as pullers. Was able to get that off. And I put that in the vise and I sanded that with some emery cloth, and everything slid on much better after I cleaned up the shaft. On the back side of the motor, there's this motor mount that goes, and this is the down tube for the seat. This bracket has to fit in within that and does not fit, and this is like bolted on here. So what I'm going to do is run my file in here and make enough space so this material, I gotta remove just a little bit of material to make that slide right down in here. It's almost the thickness of my file actually, so if I could get my file down in there, that will slide right into place. So a couple discoveries. This plate goes over the motor mount bolts. The old motor mount comes out completely, and these studs are sticking out, and this plate goes over it, and I would assume that these come through here and lock it around the actually these go on and the whole thing gets locked around the seat tube. Okay, so I discovered that this sprocket needs to come off and be turned around 180 degrees, because you see here's the other sprocket, they don't line up. With this around and slid that way, I'm sorry, with this one turned around and slid that way, these would line up. Remember I was talking about, I'm not sure if this one goes this way or this way. Well, this one goes this way, and this was included in the kit. It's a lock washer, or like a lock sleeve collar, lock collar. I don't know where this goes, because this has lock 2 grub screws, and this has 2 grub screws. So I'm really not sure. You know, I went through to get this thing off here. I'm gonna do it again. One more time. This has to be flipped around 180 degrees. Sheesh. Watch this. Watch this disappear into that slot. Okay, this is something I just discovered. The kit came with these little studs, and I thought they were the set screws. I mean, maybe one of them is, because there's one extra, the set screws, just because of the depth. But it turns out 2 of them, Allen key, you take out the old engine studs, you pull them out, or you could cut them, and you crank in these, and then it comes with these nuts. I had to adjust and trim this right here so it sits flush, but that makes more sense because now these 2 bolts right here are accessible. It's all making sense to me now. Make sure that you throw a lock washer underneath these. When I put this together for its final time, put a lock washer. See that? It's got that little cut. It digs in. I tell you what, everything on this thing is a puzzle. Okay, so I put this bolt in that goes all the way through. Washer, lock washer, nut. This bolt in that goes all the way through. Washer, lock washer, nut. This one, I wasn't able to. Now I could probably, but I could only get a lock washer and a nut. Okay, so then I go to wrap this chain and line up this chain, and I'm like a link short on the chain. Okay, I'm a link short on the chain. Trust me, I am. And so, okay, now I'm not. I push this bracket forward because it has slots, so I loosen these back up and push this whole bracket forward. But now I'm hitting this nut down here. Oh my gosh, the nut's too big. But it looks like I have enough to get this chain on now, and I could pull back on this and tension it. Alright, I'm figuring this thing out, but it is not like a very simple thing, because this all has to come apart because the bike pole, the seat pole goes through here. So everything I do, I mean, I guess I could slip it through and put this plate on, have all this side together. Alright, folks. I still don't know what this alright. we'll be back at you as I progress with this. I want to get it right. I don't want it to be boogered. Okay, another discovery. You have to put the cover plate on first. So that means you got to take out all 5 bolts, and it comes with 3 long black ones and 2 shorter ones, but they're longer than the originals. So I put a lock washer on this one and a lock washer on this one because those thread into the block. These 3 go all the way through, and the lock washer is going to be on this side. So they're still sticking out because you have to leave them out to slide this assembly in, and then you could push them all the way through. Alright, we're learning this. It's all making sense. Don't strip nothing out. Everything is cheap China. Don't over crank stuff. I have a little kit, but this is China crap too. So once I figure this out completely, I might go and run up and buy stuff from Lowe's of hardened steel or some better metal. Alright, on to the next thing. Okay, so remember, before this assembly goes on, these motor mounts need to be bolted on here, and you need to put the lock washer, a lock washer. It probably could use some Loctite, but mine is out in my van and it's not on my property here, so we're not doing it. We're using lock washers, and don't over tighten the stuff. Now this assembly here should slide right into that nook. Right into that nook. And these black bolts should weave right through and stick out enough to get a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on 1, 2, 3. So let me get that put together here, and I'll show you what I got. Alright, so here's where I'm at. I have this sprocket where I want it. It lines up. It fits perfectly. With the master link, it'll be perfect. These I had just China bolts. I'm going to actually go to Lowe's tomorrow and get some that'll look more like that. Maybe silver ones or stainless steel ones. And they just needed to be that long. 3 of them. Bing, bing, bing. I'm still not sure if this is going the right direction or if it needs to be flipped 180 degrees, and it will not be fun if I have to do that, I assure you. But until it's on the bike and I have this sprocket lined up to the sprocket on the bike, I don't know where it is. No recollection of where it's at. Alright, I'm ending this video right now. Watch for part 3. This is part 2. I'll continue from here on part 3. Thank you for watching Old School Studios. Please hit like and subscribe.